We got to leave it there. Congressman Tom MacArthur, good luck in your race.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be with you.
MacArthur's challenger, Andy Kim of Bordentown, is a Rhodes Scholar, a former national security official in the Obama administration, and he joins us now. Mr. Kim, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me here today.
What is behind your desire to run for Congress?
Well, I've always been somebody dedicated to serving this country. I feel proud to have served under both Republican and Democrats and making sure that we're putting the American people and keeping them safe. And this is the district that gave me everything. This is the district where I was raised and where I'm raising my 2 baby boys now. And I want to make sure that we have strong representation for that district and for the people there.
Your parents are immigrants from South Korea?
That's right. My parents are immigrants from South Korea. My father grew up in an orphanage. He's a survivor of polio, was homeless for much of his childhood. My mother grew up in a poor farm family to a single mom. But here in America, my dad went on to become a PhD in genetics, went on to dedicate his life to trying to cure cancer and Alzheimer's. And my mother worked as a nurse in the hospital systems here in South Jersey. So this is the district that gave us that opportunity and gave us that chance.
You came up in Cherry Hill or Evesham?
Evesham and Cherry Hill, that's right.
And what relevant government experience do you have?
Sure. Well, I've dedicated my whole career to national security and serving this country. As I said, I was a career public servant, not a political appointee.
Where did you go to college?
So I went to the University of Chicago for my undergraduate, and then I did a doctorate in international relations as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford.
Okay, and so you've worked in the national security field in Washington more or less ever since.
Well, I worked abroad as well. So I served as a strategic advisor to General Petraeus and General John Allen when they were the 4-star commanders out in Kabul, Afghanistan. I also had the opportunities to work at the Pentagon as a Middle East advisor in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. And then I worked at the White House National Security Council for 2 years as the Iraq director there, getting to work in the Situation Room and closely in the Oval Office as well.
Tom MacArthur, as you know, thinks you're inflating your resume. What do you say when he says that?
Sure. Well, what I say is that really shows how little he understands about national security and foreign policy. I've worked very closely in these fields. I have a lot of great experiences with some of the highest levels of people in our government. That's why I was one of the very first candidates endorsed by Vice President Biden for this election cycle, is because we had a chance to work very closely together at the White House. So I stand by my resume. I stand by everything I've done. I had an incredible opportunity to work in the Situation Room during some of the toughest crises that we've been facing as a nation, and I'm proud of that service and the service to this country.
And he has seized on somebody writing that you were a note taker in a meeting and saying, oh, he was just a note taker, to which you say?
To which I say that I was the subject matter expert that helped put that high-level talks with the Iraqi government together, that I was the main coordinator for the foreign minister's visit to Washington, D.C., and as the subject matter expert and the person organizing this all, I was proud to be in the room, proud to be part of that U.S. delegation, that high-level delegation, and I'm proud to make sure that we can move forward from that meeting and be able to identify what the best policies are for our country.
I also have to get you to respond to another thing he said, which is that by choosing to do this interview separately rather than with him, that you're ducking him, and that you had been on record as saying you would meet him anytime, anywhere. Why not here? What's your answer to that?
Sure. So I certainly want to make sure that the people of the Jersey 3rd Congressional have an opportunity to see us in person. We had an opportunity to do that when the citizens of the district put together a town hall a couple weeks ago to talk about health care. That town hall happened on the 1-year anniversary since his last town hall. So he's not meeting with the people of the district. And that's the big story here, is that if he wants to talk about his record, talk about what he stands for, he should be standing in front of the people of the Jersey 3rd Congressional District. And that's what I hope to have a chance to do with him.
Is this election a referendum on President Trump?
No, this election is about what's best for the people of this district that I grew up in. I go around this district every single day talking to people in Burlington County and Ocean County. And what I hear over and over again is that so many people here are living paycheck to paycheck, trying to find a way to be able to have some more security and stability in their life. And they're not feeling like they're getting that. They don't feel like they have in Washington a representative that's on their side. And what I'm trying to explain to them is that, I'm somebody who's always been dedicated to serving this country, and that this is what it's going to be about, just trying to get the job done.
You say you encounter people living paycheck to paycheck, and that Washington isn't taking care of them. Tom MacArthur is a close ally of Donald Trump. We're taping this on a day when new jobs numbers are out. Unemployment is at an 18-year low. Maybe economically it's working for the Republicans right now. What do you say to that?
Well, just before I came out here, I just read an article about a Federal Reserve Board report that said 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to handle a $400 emergency. If that was a healthcare crisis, or if that was some other type of crisis, that they would have to try to borrow or sell something in order to be able to get by. That's a problem here, and I hear that over and over again in this district, that they are one illness, one crisis away from economic disaster. And that's showing that we have a lot of problems in this country that we are still not addressing.
What makes you think that Democrats Democrats were in for 8 years up until 2016. What makes you think that it'll be any different if you're the congressman from the 3rd District?
Sure. Well, for me, it's about focusing on the needs of this district. And when I go around and hear from people about what they're interested in, what they're looking for, they're telling me about how they're concerned about the high cost of prescription drug medication costs. They're concerned about the different aspects of the opioid crisis that are really hurting this community and hurting both counties here. They're asking for really practical things that they're hoping that
MacArthur's the head of the opioid, or co-chair of an opioid task force in Congress. That should help alleviate the crisis in Ocean County.
Well,
no?
This is a crisis of such extreme magnitudes. We're talking about 60,000 Americans every single year dying of drug overdoses. That's, the entire number of U.S. fatalities in Vietnam every single year. We need to make sure that we have a real strategy and that we're doing what we can to address this as a national security crisis that it is. And right now, our government's not putting in the level of resources that we need to be able to address that. And the same thing goes for prescription drug medication costs. The plan that came out is not taking really concrete steps like ensuring that Medicare can be able to negotiate drug prices and that we can have greater price transparency. These are very practical things that will help people's pockets and help them be able to address these emergencies as they come up.
Do you talk about President Trump as part of your pitch to voters, or is he some sort of irrelevant to this race?
Well, he certainly is, he certainly looms over all of this. I'm certainly not going to say anything about that. I mean, for me, what I'm trying to focus in is on what we can control and what we are trying to do. What I can tell you is that people in this district, they want someone that listens to them, someone that's going to be there and be accessible to them. That's why I've pledged to, first of all, not take corporate PAC money. I want to make sure that we have a public town hall in the district every single month. These are the promises that I make, because what I told the people of this district is I want to be the most accountable, accessible, and transparent member of Congress that there is. And we start by being able to be a good, strong representative and then hear what the priorities are of the district, and then we're able to go out and be able to fight for the things that will change and help improve their lives.
One other piece of attack from the MacArthur campaign against you involves your residence, and you were living in Washington. You moved back up to New Jersey. You registered to vote in New Jersey in May of 2016. You voted, or 2017, you voted in June of 2017, but in September you still accepted a homestead tax credit in Washington, D.C., to which you weren't entitled, and you had to give it back. What do you say about that?
Well, sure. Well, first of all, I was living in Washington, D.C. For a period of that time that year, as I was finishing off my government service. And as a result, I was entitled to that homestead deduction for that period. But, regardless of that, we paid it off, and there was nothing wrong at any point there. And, what Tom MacArthur is trying to do with this is just distract from the issues that we're trying to get to here in this race here. For me, this is my home district. I grew up here. I did my public school education in this district. This is the district where I'm raising my 2 kids. That's the difference between Tom MacArthur and me, is that this is actually my home. He's the one that moved down from North Jersey, go shopping for a congressional district he could win, and moved down here, right when he was running for Congress. So if he wants to talk about who actually knows this district better, I'm happy to get into that debate.
He's a very wealthy man. He put a lot of money into winning that seat. You've raised over $1 million, which is substantial. Can you win?
Absolutely, we can win.
Give me the scenario in which you win.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I want to say, what we see with this race is exactly the problem that we have in politics. That wealthy people can self-fund and build, people like Tom MacArthur are able to dominate because of the money that they have. And for me, as a son of immigrants, as someone where my parents have never earned six figures, as that's the kind of representative the kind of diversity that we need in Congress. For me, we've been running this race, making sure we have the resources we need to be able to win this. We've raised well over $1 million, have over $1 million cash on hand. We have a lot of resources. We've outraised Tom MacArthur for 8 straight months. And we're really proud of that. We have 1,200 volunteers in the district. The energy in the Jersey 3rd Congressional is extraordinary. And I feel overwhelmed by the amount of support that we've been getting all over the place. And that's why the latest public poll shows that I'm down by just 1 point.
Whose poll was that? I didn't see that poll.
Yeah, it's a public policy poll that came out a couple weeks ago.
And you're down 1?
1 point with a 3-point margin of error. So this is a real race.
Is that a Democratic-leaning polling institute?
I'm not familiar with the institute.
The district voted for Donald Trump by a little bit, and by Kim Guadagno over Phil Murphy. You're swimming upstream a little bit in that regard. It's been represented by MacArthur. It's been represented by John Runyon, a Republican, before him. Does that make it slightly more difficult?
Well, what I can tell you is that this is also a district that voted for President Obama twice. It's a district that Senator Menendez has carried. It is a district that has 13,000 more Democrats registered than Republicans. So in that way, what this district is looking for is that they're looking for change. They're looking for a representative that is communicating with them and listening to them. And that's what this is about, is making sure that we have a strong campaign in that way. And as we contrast between myself, where I grew up in this district, dedicated my whole life to public service, raising my 2 baby boys down the road from where I grew up, compared to Tom MacArthur, I think the people see the contrast there.
Andy Kim, thanks for introducing yourself to us and our viewers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good luck.
Thank you.
On next week's